Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first breakout session. Just a couple of bits of housekeeping. If you don't mind keeping yourselves on mute and turning your videos off during the session. If we get to the opportunity to ask some questions, I'll ask you to unmute and join us. It's my pleasure to welcome today Penny Hermes, who's going to present to you the Outdoor Learning for Learners. Over to you, Penny.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Penny Hermes. I am from Cornwall. I am was a primary school teacher who did go through deputy headship, then worked for Cornwall Council around social and emotional mental health needs for children as part of the behaviour support service. I then set up my own business a few years ago, still supporting around social and emotional mental health and behaviours in school, but I also am a qualified forest school leader, so I do a lot of outdoor learning as well. Obviously down here in Cornwall we are incredibly lucky because we do have a range of outdoor spaces. We have beaches, we have woodlands, we have moorlands, so we have a huge range. What's really interesting though is even down here in Cornwall we have children who may even have a view of the sea from their school who have never been to the beach or never been to a woodland that's very close by. So a lot of work that I do is just trying to encourage staff to take the children outside, whatever the weather, and get them to enjoy being outside and learning. So that's a little bit about me. It's great to actually be able to deliver the training today. So big thank you to all the sponsors that have helped with that. And I'm hoping today for you that we will look at what barriers may stop us taking children outside, some ideas for overcoming those barriers. We'll look a little bit around some ideas to use to support outdoor learning through the curriculum, a quick chat about identifying ways to track and record the impact of outdoor learning, because it's all great to say let's take them outside, but what impact does that have on all our children? And then a very quick chat about accessing resources. It's quite a lot to fit in an hour, so I will do a lot of talking. As was mentioned, if you have got any questions, pop them in the chat box for us and we'll try and make sure we answer those. I am going to ask you to use the chat box to start off with, because I'd like you to answer a few questions for me. So to start off with, oops, let's go back one. To start off with, I just want you to think about, what percentage of school children spend less time outdoors than prisoners? And is it A, 44%, B, 23%, or C, 74%? So I just want you to pop A, B, or C into the chat box for me so we can see what you think. Well, what percentage of school children spend less time outdoors than prisoners? I will just check the chat box quickly. So what have we got? We've got a few B's, few A's, 44%. Some of you think 23%. This is taken from the Outdoor Classroom Day website, and it's from a couple of years ago. We've got quite a few B's and A's. The scary thing is it's actually 74%. So 74% of school children spend less time outdoors than prisoners. The UN guidance for prisoners requires them to have at least 1 hour of suitable exercise in the open air daily. Our children, 5 to 12-year-olds, tend to spend less than 60 minutes playing outside daily. and that was from a sample of parents that were surveyed. So yeah, 74% spend less time outdoors than prisoners. School playtimes have changed an awful lot over the last 20 years. So from 1995 to now, how much shorter are school playtimes? 35 minutes shorter, 15 minutes shorter, or 30 minutes shorter? And this is looking at lunchtime and playtimes amalgamated, primary, secondary. So again, what do we think? You've got quite a few C's coming up. 30 minutes shorter. A few of you thinking 35 minutes shorter. Interestingly, it's actually all three, depending on your age. So primary, the youngest children have lost about 15 minutes of their playtime in the last 20 years. Secondary students and Key Stage 2 children have lost anywhere between 30 to 35 minutes a week off their playtimes. Some secondary schools now have very short lunch breaks of around 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, which has cut out a lot of that socialising time, that time to be outside. So it's making a huge difference for their well-being. What percentage of children say they prefer lessons outdoors to indoors? 24%, 58%, or 92%? What do we think about that one? Do children prefer to be outdoors than indoors? Have a look, got a few answers. We've got 24%, 92%. Oh, we've got all three answers. B, 58%. It's actually in a survey that was done, a 4-year survey, Natural Connections project. They surveyed over 125 schools, and it was up to 92% of pupils preferred their lessons being outdoors than indoors. So even the children are telling us they want to be learning outside. The point of learning outside, does it make any difference to their progress? If we encourage more outdoor learning, how much extra progress do we think we can see from children? Is it 3 weeks more progress, 3 months more progress, or 3 years more progress? Quick question again. We have got lots of B's, lots of 3 months. Okay, I see there. It is 3 months. We can expect around a 3-month progress on top of their usual progress. So if we're constantly taking them outside to learn, we'll be really increasing that progress. I wish it was 3 years progress. It's not quite. What percentage of parents think play is important? 8%, 48%, or 98%? Got 48%. What do parents actually think? This is from a survey conducted a couple of years ago called Dirt is Good. And it actually came out that, believe it or not, 98% of parents believe that play is important for learning. The problem is that a lot of parents have forgotten how to play with children or put barriers in the way for play. And that's where there's a discrepancy. They know it's important, but they're not sure what to do or how to do it. So the last question, what percentage of children aged 9, walk home from school without a grown-up? Do we think 20%, 85%, or 55%? Have a quick look. 85%, 20%, So these are 9-year-olds walking home from school. Got a mixture of answers here. 55%. It's actually a lot less than we think, because it's only 20% that walk home from school without a grown-up. And this is the Children's Independent Mobility Report found that 20% of parents said their children walk home alone, compared to other countries such as Finland or Germany, where they do a lot more outdoor learning and have around 85% of this age children walking home. So you can see that there's a lot of information out there now. This is from a couple of years ago, but there is more and more, particularly recently after lockdown, of the impact that being out in nature has on us as adults, but also on children and their mental health, and also then the impact that learning. So I'm going to ask you now, if you're able to just minimize your screen and go on to this website. It's called www.menti.com. And then it'll ask you for a code, which if you've got a mobile phone or anything like that, you can pop it onto there. It'll ask you for a code, which is 4982647. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you for your ideas about what stops us from getting outside with the children. So what is it that we do that stops us going outside with children? You've got a few ideas. You can pick one or all of them, depends how you feel about it. But go on to the, oh, brilliant, we've got a couple of people who've gone on. So the weather, clothing, adult confidence, skill level, health and safety, resources, time, making a mess, or anything else you can think of. So what is it that actually stops us getting children outside, going outside with children? Give you a few moments to have a go at that. 3 having a go. Bit of a health and safety worry for some people. Oh, some people, the mess isn't good. Good old weather. Great, so we've got weather is quite a strong one. I don't think we like going out in the rain very much, do we? And health and safety. And quite a few people talking about resources or the space we might need that could stop us getting outside. That's great. A couple more moments if anyone hasn't had a go. It's a very useful tool actually if you're doing work and children have got iPads or can access the internet. Type in any questions you want on it and get bar charts, pie charts, get some ideas from them. So I think we're quite strong on the weather and health and safety. Resources and adult confidence or skill level is quite high as well. That's great. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm hoping that everybody saw the diagram then. Okay. So there are barriers to taking children outside, but why should we take them outside? like I said, there's a huge amount of research now available, and it talks about the fact that fresh air itself can help children's brain function better. Quite nicely at the moment, dirt and natural environments actually help develop our immune system. Learning outside, you can actually focus better. You're not trapped in a classroom for a lot of children. You can actually be noisier outside. So children that worry that they're too noisy or too fidgety can actually have those opportunities to be noisy and fidgety without it stopping other people from learning, because there's no ceiling for it. It's a very calm place, and doctors now are prescribing for people with anxiety or other mental health issues that actually they're prescribing going out into nature, because it really has an impact. That green space is now being found to have such an impact on our brains. Children can actually come back into class and focus better because they've had that chance outside. We can develop healthier diets with them because they can be part of the growing of their own food. And actually, being outside makes most people happier. And of course, happy learners learn better. So there's an awful lot of reasons, and there is a huge amount of research that has happened on this. And I will signpost you to a few. The Outdoor Citizens UK has got a lot of information about the impact about taking children outside. AskTheScientists.com has got information. TES have got an outdoor education section. Learning Outside the Classroom, which is lotc.org.uk. They've also got a lot of ideas and a lot of information about research. So if you have got people that want that backup, that science, it is all readily available. But just think about yourselves. I know personally that as a class teacher, when I used to teach Key Stage 2 children, we would go outside an awful lot. We would go outside and listen to a story on a sunny day, and it made me as an adult feel better and calmer. Therefore, I was responding to the children in a calmer, happier way. So if it works for us, it works for them. If it works for us, we can actually support them better. So there's a lot of win-win situations for children. When we're happier and calmer, they're happier and calmer. So taking children outside has a massive impact on their mental health, which then has a massive impact on their learning and their ability to learn. What happens though if we haven't got that outdoor space? So this was one of the things that has come up from the question earlier. Not as high as I thought, which is great, but there's an awful lot of talk at the moment about schools doing forest school. Forest school is a very different approach to outdoor learning. Forest school is very pupil-led, very free-flowing. Outdoor learning tends to be a lot more linked to curriculum and curriculum outcomes, as well as being outdoors. So it doesn't matter if you haven't got a wooded area. It doesn't matter if you haven't got beautiful beaches or moorlands nearby, because it's about using what we have got in the best way possible. So the weather, we cannot do anything about the weather, unfortunately. We are in Britain. It's often raining, a bit mizzly, as we call it down here. So we can't stop the weather. What we can do is put shelters up. We can. There is a huge, at the moment, because of having to use as much available space that we have for learning in. There's a huge amount of places that sell outdoor classrooms now, which are a roof and maybe a couple of sides, but open fronting. You can just get tarpaulins to put up over children, get children to build their own shelters. But a shelter is quite important for them if it is raining. But the most important thing with the weather is making sure they're dressed properly. So by actually dressing our children for any weather, they can access outdoor learning at all times. And there are grants available for clothing for children. So if your children don't have the most appropriate clothing to be outside, I know a lot of children when I was teaching Key Stage 2 would turn up to school on a rainy day without a coat because they were too cool to wear a coat. I know from teaching some secondary children outdoor activities that, you know, they don't care about feeling the cold or anything, because it's about, you know, wearing the right clothes. So actually providing those opportunities for them to have the right clothes to take them outside is really key. Loads of nurseries and reception classes have full waterproof wellies available. But as the children get older, this doesn't happen in classrooms. So it's about making sure if we're going to take them outside, if they can't actually get access to these clothings, we can work out how to do it. Like I say, grants are available, but there's also now a huge amount of food banks and clothing banks, which will help schools to provide the clothing for children. So weather might be a bit of an issue, but actually, if we dress properly, the weather's not an issue. Space, outdoor space in our schools, you just need a playground to do a lot of activities. You can bring stuff into your space, which is fine. If you have got access to forests, woodlands, it makes it a little bit easier, but actually you can make your space more friendly for children, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. Confidence is often a big one. Actually taking children outside, well, it takes longer, doesn't it? We have to make sure they're dressed properly. We then have to take them outside, so we have to move them. We then have to deliver our lesson. We then have to bring them back inside. We then have to undress them all to be back inside. So there's a time limit to all of this. I'm not really sure what I can do outside with children. It's quite often a big sort of response from people. And again, there is a huge amount of resources out there, but it can be a bit of an overload. There have just been developed, and it's worth flagging up, which I'll show you at the end, a set of books called the National Curriculum Outdoors. There's a Key Stage 1 book, and then a Key Stage 4 Key Stage 2 books, so year 3, 4, 5, 6, and it covers all the national curriculum areas, and there's a programme of studies for the whole time they're in primary school, and it's all activities and lessons to take outdoors. I'll show you the overview for that at the end of the session. There's a Key Stage 3, some Key Stage 3 books being developed at the moment. Younger children, foundation children, there's a huge amount of resources out there. Some of the messy maths books, really good. There's a lot of resources from Woodland Trust, things like that. So there is resources out there to support teachers, and there are training elements as well. Lots of people think taking children outside is all about having a fire going and using tools and knives and saws, and actually that's really quite scary to do if you don't feel confident. It doesn't have to be to that level, but there is training out there if people want to take it to that level, because circle time round a fire is one of the most amazing experiences that children can have, and of course they will have a marshmallow toasted on the fire. So that sort of training is more specific and is needed for your health and safety risk-benefit management process. So it is really important, if you are going to be going further down a route of looking at more forest school type of activities, that staff have got that relevant training for your health and safety documents. So outdoor spaces can look whatever you like. There's a huge range of accessible planters, mud kitchens, things like that you can buy that are the right height for children. So if they're in wheelchairs, they can access it. Children can access it standing up, sitting down, but you can also make a huge range of things yourself. Tyres are one of the most popular things to be growing plants in at the moment. Really easy to use, to fill up, and again, you can make them the right heights for your particular children. You can grow a huge amount of things. I personally like any kind of bright flowers, but mixed in with really strong smelling flowers for some children. So if they have vision impairment, anything like that, they've still got that sense of smell out there. And there's lots of plants and flowers that are suitable, like lavender. That's always a really good one. Any kind of herbs, strong smelling. So it gives children that sort of extra sense outside. Mud kitchens are really popular in primary schools. They can be built from pallet woods. You probably find that you've got some amazing parents out there that will actually help make or resource some of these things. Mud kitchens can be amazing for science lessons as well as free play. If you haven't got that space, a bucket of mud is amazing. So just a bucket or a washing up bowl with things that they can do and get mucky in is an ideal opportunity, and it can just be in the corner of the playground. It doesn't have to be in a big open space. It's about maximising the space that you have got outside. You can, for some children that maybe struggle with the cold, because some children do find the cold very difficult, you could try bringing the outside in on occasions. So getting them to do a quick exploratory outdoor activity and bring it indoors, or bring stuff in for them if they're not able to do that, and still get them to experience those smells, those touches, those feelings of different things. Lovely activity to do is, especially this time of year when it's getting cold, is to freeze natural things in ice. You can put a candle in it, or you can hang them up in the windows, and they get that cold sensation but inside, so it feels safer for them. And then they get the feelings of all the different plants. Christmas is a lovely time for doing lots of natural art and craft activities with what you can find outside. And go and have a nice walk in the woods to collect lots of bits for children to use. So a bit of homework for teachers to go and actually find some of these things that children will find interesting and exciting, and you can bring it into the classroom if it is too much for them to go outside. There is a huge amount of research going into the physical side of being outdoors, particularly around balancing and having those opportunities. So a lot of places have pre-made playground equipment, which is great, but actually when children make their own playground equipment, have that ownership around it, they use it more, and actually they'll get more out of it. So making their own rope ladders, tying their own slack lines up, finding places to balance and walk up and down things. As adults, we tend to get quite anxious about children climbing trees. As long as they're doing it safely, and as long as you've done that risk-benefit document, climbing trees is amazing for a lot of children, particularly for that sort of feeling of needing your muscles stretched, or deep pressure type of activities. Hanging off a tree is perfect for that, and as long as you've got some trees around, you don't need any other resources. Particularly doing work that I've done, I found children on the autistic spectrum have enjoyed this tremendously once they feel safe. So once they felt safe in their environment, which we've done a bit of work on, then climbing trees and hanging off them, they've wanted to spend a whole session just doing that, never mind all the activities we had planned. It was just that need for their sense of body awareness and how much force and pressure they needed to give, how safe it was to climb. And yeah, so children with that sensory seeking need have found being outside meets that need really, really well. And you can control it in a much quieter environment being outdoors. I've already mentioned about the sensory side of things. For children with hearing, vision loss, sensory trails outdoors can be huge for them. The sense of smells, the different textures, the noises that they can hear, that having that time to just stop and be quiet and listen in an outdoor space is very different to doing it in a classroom where sounds are a lot more muffled. Children having blindfolded activities, trust activities outside where it's a lot quieter and calmer, it tends to work a lot better. Making your own musical instruments out of what you've got and being able to leave them outside so that they can hear those different sounds of sticks knocking together or making shakers out of natural items. This also then obviously links really nicely into the music curriculum. So you can do a huge range of things around music without needing musical instruments, because they can make a lot of these things themselves. And then having those things that are available outside the whole time during playtimes, lunchtimes, increases that musical awareness for them. So there's a huge amount of extracurricular activities that can go on just during playtime. You will see there that you can even make whistles out of carrots, which is quite a tricky skill, but once it's done with children, it's quite amazing how they can hear different pitches and make different tunes with different carrots, different sized carrots. It's a really good one to do with secondary children as well. So a really good skill to be able to make a whistle out of a carrot. And I think if you remember back to when you've taken a blade of grass and put it between your fingers and made that whistling sound, it's quite a sense of achievement as well. So there's lots of little things we can do in order to be building confidence as well as the curriculum areas. One of the biggest areas that have been researched is around the social and emotional mental health for children. So that's the big focus at the moment around children's behaviour, and taking them outside. And this is where I've done an awful lot of work in schools, taking groups or individual children outside to do work with them, has made an impact on them going back into the classroom and accessing their learning. They learn to take risks, but in a safe way. So a lot of children's behaviour is very, very risky behaviours, running off, climbing things, throwing things, being very physical. When we give them those opportunities outside, they start understanding around safety. How safe is it to climb a tree? What happens if I fall? So they're actually starting to look at how they can take risks, but in a safe, controlled way, which can then help them with some of their choices around behaviour. They develop trust with adults as well. So you have to trust the adult around the fire to keep you safe. Following instructions and rules is massive, because they know if they don't, they're not going to be safe around the fires and things. And occasionally, I think I've had one or two children who think that actually they're a bit more invincible and have gone to try and touch fire, that sort of thing. And we've had long talks about that. Often children, I've worked with a child who was fascinated with fire and was lighting things at home, trying to find lighters, lighting things, experimenting with things, primary school age. We did a lot of work around fires outside and safety, and he became a fire marshal for our outdoor sessions, and it had a huge impact on his behaviours at home, where he was trying to experiment and find out about fires. So it was a real balancing act of getting it right for him so that he could find out and experiment around things, but in a much safer environment for him. There's always teamwork building, the perseverance skills they get, grounding activities that you can do outside. Again, there's a lot of research that's just recently happened around children being barefoot outside, and actually experiencing the different textures and feelings with their feet can have a huge impact on their brain development as well, because it's a full body experience then. So there's a lot of grounding activities that can happen. Circle time around a fire is lovely, especially when we all stop, do that mindfulness time, listen to the popcorn popping, or just watch a fire. For me, because I'm trained, I like to do the more risky things of fires and tool work and things. But even just sitting in a circle within that sort of that idea of building a circle outside, you don't have to have a fire in the middle of it, you can do something else. But having that time to just be with each other outside and listen is really good for children with anxiety. It starts helping children that maybe have had trauma in their life develop strategies for coming back to the moment, as opposed to living in the past and having these memories. So we can teach them skills of stopping, listening to what's happening around them, coming back into the moment, and then being able to move forwards. So the impact on social, emotional, mental health can be really, really big for those children that are struggling in a busy classroom. Loose parts play is a massive thing. Again, if you can't take children outside, what can you bring inside? What can you have in the playground for them to play with? Again, you've got lots of building things, moving things around physically. You can be developing fine motor skills. You've got extra senses that come out from this. Becoming much more creative. There's a lot of sorting, which is very calming, and left-right brain conversations happen when we start sorting things. So there's a huge amount just by having stuff for them to do outside. And this is the difference between the ready-made, pre-designed playground equipment and having stuff that is safe for them to build with. They will learn to take risks again in a safe way, because deep down they want to keep themselves safe. So there is a lot of activities they can do if you just give them a pile of tyres, for example, or cable reels or crates that you can pick up. And if you ask around, it's amazing how many of these things you can get. And again, these can just be in part of the playground that you've got for all children to access. If you put a pile of equipment like this around adults, they will want to build and do things. Secondary children find it fascinating because a lot of them have missed out on these experiences. And primary children are great at finding things, building things, and doing things like that. All of these things will be interlinked and woven through the curriculum. There is a huge amount of maths, outdoor maths you can do. There's some great books, Messy Maths by Juliet Robertson, who does a lot of outdoor learning. There is the National Curriculum Outdoors books that I've mentioned that have a full sort of unit for maths throughout primary school. Shape and space, patterns, data handling, all can naturally be built into lessons outside for maths. It's one of the ones that I think is very, very easy to take children outside to do. Science, naturally, science leads to being outdoors. You've got, of course, got about the natural environment, growing things, life cycles, healthy eating, the food that we grow. You've got a lot of work you can do on materials and properties by things like having the mud kitchen out there. Even for the older children, they'll be developing a lot about those different types of materials. You can cross-curricular link it with topics. magic, spell making, those sorts of things. So there's a huge amount of cross-curricular you can do, as well as very specific learning around the science around us. And it links also very nicely into RE lessons about caring for the environment and what nature is around in different religions. I am just keeping an eye on the time at the moment, because I know we're almost at a point of asking questions, because I will stop and just check any questions. Tracking pupils. How do we actually show that all these things we're doing, we're taking children out for different subjects, for different experiences? How can we actually track that this is making an impact? What he said at the beginning of this presentation, that children can improve up to through this. Well, the easiest one is through their curriculum engagement. So where children may be more reluctant to engage in subjects in the classroom, they might engage more positively when they're taken outside the classroom to do the same subject. So we can look at curriculum engagement. We can look at their actual curriculum levels. There are a number now of different sorts of self-esteem indicators that you can do online, including sort of the SDQ, which can give you a good indicator, and you can also get the child to do that as well for themselves. There are a lot of social and emotional tracking that's out there at the moment. I know down here in Cornwall, we have schools using Motional, which was linked to trauma-informed schools training. We've got schools that use Thrive and have had training in the Thrive programme, so that gives you an online screening tool that you can use to monitor the impact of any outdoor learning you're doing. Voxel Profile, which has been around for 50 odd years, is another really good way to say this is the difference we're making. They are engaging more in the curriculum, but actually socially and emotionally, this is where we're moving them on to. There's something called the Ludwin scale for wellbeing and involvement, which is a really quick and easy way to show how children are becoming more involved in their learning. So it's a huge way that we can actually say, okay, we might still be struggling with behaviour, we might still be struggling with some curriculum engagement, but actually by taking them outside, this is the impact it's having on their self-esteem, their social and emotional skills, their involvement with peers, so that we can actually show we are making at all now. There is a number of places that do resources, needs, those sorts of things, and also got the space just to start building that natural environment up for children. Learning Through Landscapes has a funding area where you can see what funding that you might be able to access in education, and also if you join the Institute for Outdoor Learning, there is a subscription fee for that. That has resources for lessons, but it also has links to other places where you can access funding, things like National Lottery, Children in Need. They will all provide funding for equipment for children to get them outdoors, gardening, the right clothing, that sort of thing. So there's a lot. It is a case of looking at what you need for your school and which ones you fit the criteria for. There's a huge amount of funding out there for people, but you do need to actually look through and check what is available. I just going to say thank you again. I think these are the last two slides, and then I'll show you the outdoor learning, national curriculum outdoor learning information online. But yeah, the sponsors for this, it's been great to make sure that we're still able to do this training in this conference today. So there are access to CPD options available at the moment. Okay, and I think those are on the slides if you need any more information around those. I'm just going to pop onto the internet, so I'm hoping you can all see this. So there is a website. There are the National Curriculum Outdoor books which are available. Like I say, Key Stage 1 right through to Year 6. Brand new this year, I believe. Really good resource, and what comes with it is a subject overview. If anyone is Key Stage 3 or secondary age, then like I say, I think they are looking at developing some for secondary children now as teachers as well. But you've also got the subject overview, so you've got literacy, how you can start it in Key Stage 1 and develop it over the years. They're usually a 6-week block of lessons. English, maths, science, like I say, they lead nicely to do outdoor learning. There's also lessons, 6-week block lessons for geography, for history, for art and design technology. They've done a languages unit for Key Stage 2, which is French, but obviously you can replace that with any other language that you're teaching within Key Stage 2. There is a music unit and religious education unit. Throughout all the units, the personal social development is also linked throughout. It's not necessarily standalone lessons, but they have this interwoven throughout. So their PHSE is developed throughout all the different subjects, taking them outside. I found them quite a useful resource for becoming more specific on some subject areas. And there are other resources out there, like I say, the Juliet Robertson books are brilliant, the Messy Maths and Outdoor Play ones. There are a huge amount of websites out there, and it's just filtering through those to say, right, what do we need for our school and how can we use these appropriately? I think all the National Curriculum Outdoor books now have SEN links as well. So for children that maybe aren't reaching their year group level, they have got links for how to support them throughout. So I am now going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. Done lots of talking. It feels really, really strange to be talking about outdoor learning while sat inside on a computer. Normally, I would be taking you outdoors and doing some different activities with you. That introduction where you were answering questions, I'd normally get you to move around between an A, B and C marker. So there's a lot more movement. But as things are at the moment, it's getting used to doing things differently, isn't it? So that's kind of learning outdoors, trying to get all learners involved. So if there are any questions, please ask them. Hello.
Hi there, Penny. Very good presentation. Thank you very much for that. There aren't any questions currently in the chat room. I don't know if anybody wants to kind of share their experiences of outdoor learning and some of the wins that they've experienced as a practitioner. If you'd like to kind of unmute yourself and join the conversation, that would be great. Or if you're a bit shy, then please feel free to put comments in the chat room, and we'll ask Penny those questions for you. We've currently got sort of 5-10 minutes left of this session. Anybody got anything they would like to ask or experiences they'd like to share?
Oh, we've got a question about fire training. Is that?
Hello, Penny. You mentioned that you run fire sessions because you've had the training. Is this a statutory requirement? So I think a question around about the training that you've had to deliver those sessions.
I run fire sessions because I'm a level 3 forest school practitioner. So I do run different sorts of sessions outside of school hours. It would all depend on your insurance. So I know there's a number of people that have done sort of worked with scouts and cubs and guides and things like that, that also do fire work within having a fire circle within a school. And it would depend on your school insurance as to what level of training you might need in order to have an outdoor fire running in your school. The level 3 forest school practitioner training is quite a lot. It's very detailed, but there are now different companies bringing out accredited training. I know down here in Cornwall we have something called Wild Tribe training, which is an accredited training, 2-day training for teachers, and it does cover fire safety, which means that most insurance companies are happy with that training. So it is all about going back to look at insurance and the health and safety regulations in your school. Good to know who provides this accredited training. Yeah, I can send some information in. If you're in Scotland, unfortunately we're not, but it's Scotland have a huge amount of training that is available. There are, like I say, various companies doing it, so I'll put a list together and send that in so that people can see what is available. Yeah, that's no problem at all. I can add that.
If you want to send that in to us, we'll then circulate that with the notes and the copies of the videos for the session. That'd be much appreciated. I know how important and enjoyable those fire sessions are. My son has got a woodland day tomorrow, and he's very excited about being able to start a fire. And so I can talk from personal experience on that one.
It's amazing. I did some sessions with the Cornwall Children's Deaf Society last year, and a number of the children also were diagnosed with autism. So it was quite a mixture of children and their parents, because we were doing it during school holidays. And I can remember one of the older boys was adamant he didn't want to come along. He wanted to stay at home and play on his computer, and he joined in, and we did some fire lighting, and he sat and he watched, and he had his hood up, and he wasn't going to engage, he wasn't going to join in at all. And we did some fire lighting, and he was watching, and then my fire, because I was doing something else, and the person watching my fire was talking, and we suddenly realised my fire had almost gone out, and he suddenly appeared from nowhere with some sticks and just sort of went, "Your fire's going out," and took over my main fire and kept it going, and then put on some extra put on the kettle, and then he made everyone hot chocolate. And it was amazing to go from "I'm not joining in, this is rubbish," to actually being a really integral part of the group. And he came to the other sessions I did as well, and he was always very reluctant to actually admit that he was having a nice time, but he did become one of my main fire monitors of everything, and it just had a huge impact on him. It was great.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Hazel's put a comment in the chat. Just thank you for how helpful it was with the difference between forest stroke beach being score more child-led and outdoor learning being linked to the traditional curriculum objectives. So I think just appreciation of that. Was there anything else you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of talk, and some people that are forest school trained are very precious about being forest school trained, because it is done in a very different way. But for me personally, I think we just get children outdoors. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter if it's closely linked to the curriculum or if it's a lot of child-led activities and facilitating what they're interested in. It's about being outdoors, that enjoyment of being outdoors, and that understanding around our environment and being part of nature, that to me is the most important thing. I think a lot of schools feel more confident doing it through the curriculum. That's the difference. And to me, yeah, brilliant. Get them outside, doesn't matter how.
I like the comments also, the slides you showed were about bringing the outdoors in. So where you know, may have challenges with environments and the opportunities to get out, especially currently, then the opportunity to bring the outdoors in and still have those learning outcomes on those.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that apparently, you know, you don't have to quarantine for too long because nature's okay. You're allowed to go out into nature.
And the last comment I would make is that link to mental well-being, and the importance of being outdoors, and how I think that story you just shared, I think again reflects that impact.
Yeah, it's I'm lucky because I get to work with some very challenging children in the classroom, and when they're outdoors with me, it's the teachers can't believe the difference, the cooperation, the following instructions, and they can see a real difference with these learners, and it's great, and it works, like I say, from any age. So I've done a lot of work with older children, secondaries, as well as right down to the nurseries. And yeah, it's great when they see and notice a difference in children and say, oh, I didn't know they could do that. They don't show me that in the classroom. So it's a real positive impact on relationships as well. So the teacher-pupil relationships can be changed hugely outdoors when they can see so much more positivity.
That's great, Penny. We're kind of getting close to our time now, so if there aren't any further comments or questions, I'll pull the session to a close. I just thank you again for a fantastic session.
Brilliant. Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you.